Hello, for this tutorial we are going to be showing you how to do movement for a character in a platform type game. As you can see in the screen here, we've got a character that can move left and right. He can also, when he jumps off of something, he falls as if he's being pulled down by gravity. He goes up ladders and down ladders, and you can see he falls as such. Okay, so we'll get that going. So I'm going to go and close this and open up a GameMaker project and get that set up. Now, to start here, you're going to need to make sure you've got a directional sprites here, left for left, right, up, and down. You will also need two other sprites, one for a block that's going to be used for platforms that you stand on, and another one is just a simple ladder sprite. Let me go into some detail here. Your block should be square. It doesn't have to be, but it's a little bit easier to work with if your block is square. Now the default grid in GameMaker is 32 by 32, which is this one just happens to be here. So this block will work well. If your block is not 32 by 32 and you want to save that trouble, just click on this little icon right there. And this is where you can scale the image to make it 32 by 32. And the way you do that is just if these values are not the same, you would not have this checked. If they are the same, you can leave this maintain aspect ratio checked, and you just change these both to 32. Again, if they're not the same, you're going to have to uncheck this little maintain aspect ratio check mark. And then if you do rescale it, I suggest you click linear here. And what that does is kind of smooth everything out, smooth the picture out so everything looks good. I don't need to do that in this case, but that's what you would do, and you would just click apply here. Okay. The other sprite you need is a ladder sprite. Now I'm going to go ahead and name this one. I didn't name it. And I'm just going to simply call it ladder. And notice how I've got my naming convention, which I've talked about in several videos here. This is how I name sprites. A lowercase SPR, and then capital for the first letter of the word, and then just the name of it. And ladder is spelled L-A-D-D-E-R, in case you're unsure. Now this sprite as well, since we want to go on the same kind of grid, we have to make sure that it will work well in a 32 by 32 grid, which is what ours is going to be here. So we look at it here and we see this is 32 by 64 high. Now this is actually going to be okay because 64 is double of 32. So this means this sprite will take up 2 grid spaces in the room, and you'll see that when we make the room. So you just got to make sure that the width is a multiple of 32. This is 32 times 1 is 32, and the height is some kind of multiple of 32 as well. So this is double 32, so it'll work. So if it doesn't, if the ladder you pick does not do this, or is not, it should be 32 by 32 or 32 by 64 like this one is, or could even be 32 by 96, just some kind of multiple of 32. So make the changes there if you need to. Go ahead and click apply. I didn't need to do anything, so mine's fine. Now the other thing you want to do, check with all your sprites. Well, for the block and ladder, you want to make sure that the sprite, the origin, is in the top left. So right here, if I'm looking at the ladder here, you see my origin right there is at top left. That's what you want for this type of sprite. The block as well, you want to make sure that the origin is at top left. If you accidentally click around here, you're going to need to make sure that you change this back to top left so that it'll line up with the grid correctly. Now with our directional sprites here, we have to make sure that they are all their origins are all the same. They don't necessarily have to be top left, but they do have to be the same as each other. So if I open them all here, and we see, okay, this origin is top left. Okay, that one's good. This one is top left. Okay, good. This one is top left right there, see, it's good. And the last one is also top left. Okay, they could all have been center, all bottom middle, or something of that, as long as they were all the same. Okay, and their size is not important here because they're not going to directly be interacting with the grid. So any size here is fine. And again, you may have to just adjust it for how it looks in the room, but other than that, the size is not a critical issue with this in this game. All right, so first thing we do is we're going to create an object for our jumper. So let me do that. So again, we just right click on objects and go create. Now you notice I've already got an object in here. This is something I'm going to be using for to demonstrate some distances and how the x and y values, the coordinates, are determined. So just you don't have to create this object grid draw. This one is one that I'm just using for this demo here. So I'm going to call it obj jumper, just because that's what I called my sprites. See, again, I just lowercase obj and then the word jumper. I'm going to set my sprite to the, I'm going to use the, as I normally use, I'm going to use the down sprite. That's the one where she is facing me. Okay, so we'll use that one. Okay, and then we're going to make an object for the block here, and we're going to make one for the ladder too, but then we'll go, so create object block, give it the sprite of the block, and then this one we need to make solid, so make sure you click solid here. Okay, and we're not going to add any events to this at all ever, so it'll be okay just to leave that blank. We can go ahead and close it. Then we need one more for the ladder. And this one is not solid, okay? And we're not going to program it to do anything either, so we can just leave it blank, but make sure it is not set to solid, please. Okay, all right, let me go ahead and close that. And what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and build the room and get that set up. So I'm going to double click on room 0 down here. Again, I came down here and I clicked on rooms and then room 0 here. And I'm going to hold the control key down and spin the wheel. And that's how you can move the room around here. If you need to zoom in and out, you hold the control key, which is the key that is on the lower left corner of your keyboard, and you spin the wheel back to zoom out, spin the wheel forward to zoom in. You can also, if you just, without pressing any keys, just hold down the middle mouse button, the wheel. If you press down on the wheel, you can just click and drag the room, or you're not really dragging the room, you're just dragging your view and viewing different parts of the room. Alright, so we're going to start making platforms here. Again, you want to make sure that whatever size your block was here, see my block is 32 by 32, we want to set the grid the same way. And the way you set the grid is you just click right here, this little pull down, and you just make sure grid X and grid Y are both 32, or whatever the size of the block was here. Okay. Alright, so let me close that up. And then I'm just going to click on block here, and with the holding the Alt key down, I can draw several platforms here. Now I'm not going to spend too much time to make this super pretty right now. This is just for demonstration, just so you can see how it runs. And you might want to put a whole set of platforms across the bottom here. That way your guy will not fall off the screen. Okay. Now I'm gonna put some stair steps here so he can climb back up a little bit. All right, so I guess that won't make any difference, right? Well, here, I'll put another platform right there, just so you can get over to here. All right, and then I'll put my my guy in the room here, or my girl, I'm sorry. So just click that and drop it over. Now I like to just bring it above so that when the game starts she drops down onto the platform. So just leave it like that. And you'll see when we start the game nothing's going to happen. We have to program, we have to tell the computer to make her to drop. So So you'll see that in a second, but if I just play it, you'll see it just looks like this. So you see her little legs are flapping around, but she's not dropping or anything. We have to tell the computer to make that happen. Okay. So let's get started on that. So on her character here, the jumper, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna set a create event. So we're gonna add event, create, and we're gonna set a couple of variables that we're gonna use to help determine how she moves and how fast she moves. This will allow us to change the speed quickly in the game if she hits a power up and that sort of thing. Will help her help speed her up if she needs to. So what we're going to do, we're going to use this one, the assigned variable, which is in the common section. You drag that in, and the first variable we're going to set is I'm just going to call it SPD. We've used this variable before, and then again this is a variable that we are creating, and we're going to set it to 4. I like 4. Okay, the other thing we want to do also is set her animation speed. Now you don't always have to do this, but this character, her little legs are kind of going a little bit faster than I'd like, and I'd like to be able to fine-tune that if I need to. So I'm going to go down here to instances here and pick up set animation speed, drag that in, and I'm just going to use ANS or ANI SPD, and just short for animation speed, Annie speed. Okay, and again, this is just a word I made up. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going out of order here. Hit the wrong button. Okay, I want to set a variable first. Okay, the variable is going to be called Annie speed. Okay, and I'm going to set this to 0.5, which means she'll advance half of a frame every step. So her feet will go half as fast. Okay. Now next, what I want to do, the thing I want to do next, I do want to add a set animation speed, but but the purpose of this is to get her to stop her leg motion when the game starts. So I'm going to set this to 0, which means she will not cycle through her animations that make her look like she's walking. Okay. So put that in there like that, and we are set for the create event. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make it so that she gets pulled down by gravity, but only if there's nothing below her. So let me move this over, widen the screen here so I can see a little bit better here. So I'm going to add a new event, and we want this to happen every step. We are basically saying at every step we're going to check to see if there's not anything below her. And if there's not anything below her, we're going to have gravity push down on her. Okay, so I'm going to go add event step because I want to check every step, and you can just use step here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to check to see if there is anything below her. So if I go down to, went too far. Where is it? If we go down to, oh, there it is. Okay, right here under collisions, we're going to check right here if any object at. That's the one we want, the X with the little dotted box around it. So I'm going to drag that guy in, and we want to check below us. So the way GameMaker does that is we want to check right below us, and let me kind of demonstrate what it's going to be checking here. In the example I showed you earlier, you see here's our platformer. It's moving and everything. You'll see that the block is directly below him. Now the way in GameMaker, as in with a lot of other game makers, there is game making programs, there is a X and Y coordinate that kind of tells where the person is. And if you look on my character here, see that if you see this green plus sign here, that is his origin. That's his handle. That is his X and Y position. So if we look at, if we kind of put in these arrows here, you'll see as I move to the left, his X value gets smaller. See? See right here, if I get right on this line here, I've got the grid lined up here. He's right on 300. If you look, see this, the darker red lines are hundreds, and the fainter red lines are tens. So we got 100, 200, 300. See, he's 300 away from the left side of the screen. That means his X value is 300. His Y value, that's his distance from the top of the screen down to his origin, is 434. So what we want to do for this next step to see if he needs, our character needs gravity applied to her, is if she were to move down one space, would she hit anything? So right now I'm looking at my Y is 434. If I were to place this character at 435, would I hit anything? And then based on that answer, we want something to happen. So, or actually, the more correct way that we're going to ask the question is if I move this guy down one spot, would there not be anything here? And so I'll demonstrate kind of in the coding what we're doing here. So we're asking if there is not, we want to make sure that we want to check if there's not any object. So we click not there. Okay. If we had that unchecked, it would be checking to see if there is an object there. And we want to go right below us. So we are horizontally, if we went down one step, this would not change. So we'd have a 0 change in X. So we put 0 relative. And then vertically, remember, we want to check if we move down one space. So we're going to basically add 1 to this, which the way we do that is we go Y1 relative. So this checks right below us. If our character was to move down 1 pixel, it's going to say if there's not anything 1 pixel below her, then this is where we're going to set her gravity. And the way you do that is right here. We got to set the gravity itself, and then we have to set its direction, or you can do it either way. So let's go ahead and set the direction first. Now, direction in GameMaker is set by, it's based on a 360-degree circle. Those of you who skateboard, you know what a 360 is, you know what a 180 is. That's the same numbers that they're using here in this game. Now, the way it goes is, imagine this is the center of the screen right here. And if, actually, let me pull up the video here, or the screen here. So if our guy is standing here, and if he's going this direction, straight this way, or if we want him to fall that way, that direction going this way to the right would be 0. And the rotation goes counterclockwise up around this way. So if we wanted to go straight up, that would be 90. Okay, so this would be 0, 90. To go the opposite way, the opposite of 0 would be 180. So if we go to the left, he'd be going 180, or he'd be in the direction of 180. Then to go down, which is what we want, you have to take, it's another 90 degrees here. So 180 plus 90 is 270. So that's our number that we need. So that's our direction is going to be 270. Again, straight to the right is 0. Straight up is 90. Straight to the left is 180, and straight down is 270. Then we want to set, the force that's going to push her down here. And what this number is how fast her speed is going to increase every step. So if we just leave it at 1, by the time 1 second passes, her speed is 30. Because that's how many frames there are in a second by default in GameMaker. So if we leave this at 1, her speed will be 30 before we know it, and she'll drop extremely fast. So we got to make her drop kind of slow. So We're going to set this to 0.3 or 0.3. You can write it like that. And zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. Okay. So then after, when the game first starts, her downward speed is 0. After one step, it's 0.3. After two steps, it's 0.6, then 0.9, then 1.2, 1.5, 1.8, 2.1, and you can see she just gets faster and faster as time goes by, which is the same thing that would happen to you if you fell off of something tall. All right, so let's go to what we want to do. Now we got to tell it, well, what if there is something below her? What do you want to happen? And we could do if object is and uncheck this, but GameMaker's got a built-in system here for answering if something is not true. See this else right here? Drag this into position there, and what I'm going to simply do is I'm going to take these two, and what I'm doing here is I'm clicking on this one, and I'm going to hold the control key and click on this one. See how they both get highlighted there? I'm going to copy by just hitting Control C, and then click down below this else and go Control V. And what I have to do is I've got to drag these to the side of this else. And you can kind of see the logic statement forming here. If there is not any object at 1 pixel below me, that's what relative means, then set my gravity direction to 270 and set the gravitational force to 0.3. Otherwise, or else, which would mean that there is something that's one pixel below you, then we still want to set our gravity direction to 270, but we want to set the force to 0. Okay? So now we're going to test this, and you'll see there is a problem, and but we're going to fix it here. So when our game starts, you will see that she falls, but she goes through the blocks. But if you noticed, it's really hard to detect at this speed, but when she hits the block, she stops accelerating. That's because when she's touching a block, her gravity gets turned off, so she's not accelerating anymore. So the simple solution to this is to just simply say that when she hits the block, that we want her to stop. So I'm going to go to Add Event, and we find Collision with the block. Okay. Then we're just going to simply set her vertical speed, which is we've got to find the movement tab. We're gonna set speed here, but instead of just her overall speed, or whatever direction is, we're just going to set the vertical speed. That means if she's kind of falling sideways, she can still maintain her horizontal part of her movement. So this will just stop her from falling anymore. So we're going to set her vertical speed to 0. Now I'm going to test this again, and you're going to see, you may see again, sometimes it just, the spacing is just right that you don't see this, but you may see in this demonstration that, look real close, right before she falls and hits a platform, you see her stop for a second. Again, let me restart that. Watch very closely when she hits right before she hits the platform, she stops and then floats down to the platform. Oh, I started the wrong game, sorry. Let me cancel that one. Wrong one. Okay, right here. Watch, see, yes, she just floated right at the bottom there. That's because the way GameMaker does collisions is that before it actually collides with something, it checks to see, okay, I'm here in the next step. If I'm gonna collide with something solid, I'm gonna stop first, and then the next step, she's still not touching the platform, so she falls, and she just keeps falling until she hits it, until she hits that platform. So we've got to do a little trick of coding here, and this you're actually going to do some actual use a GameMaker function to make this happen. So up above this set speed, before she stops moving, we've got to get her to move down towards the platform. And to do that, we have to use a special action here called function call, which is this one. It looks like two greater than signs side by side here. So I'm going to drag this. This has to go above the set speed. And the function we are going to use, let me zoom in real good here so you can see it, is called motion contact solid. Okay. Now the right here it's asking for two arguments here, or it's asking for the argument. Now in functions, some arguments have more than one thing that you have to put in, and those things are called arguments. This would normally be written motion contact solid. If you were doing this straight coding and not this drag and drop, you would do this function here and then put in parentheses. You'd put what I'm about to put next. But we want her to continue when she knows she's going to hit the block in the next step. We want her to continue in that same direction, whatever direction it is she's falling. So that's why we use the word direction. And then we want her to go for a maximum of 12 pixels, which is basically if it's further away than 12, she won't move towards it, or she'll move a maximum of 12. And the reason for this is we don't want her to jump all the way down to the bottom of the screen. We don't want her to move more than 12 pixels to get to her collision point, which the way the game is programmed here, she shouldn't do that. So this will just be a good representation. And the reason I use 12 is I've just known from previous experience that 12 seems to work well. So now what's going to happen is as she's falling, when she knows she's going to hit a platform in the next step, she will move towards that platform and then stop. So let's test it, and you got to watch quickly here. When she hits that platform, she'll fall straight to it instead of floating above it at first. Oh, I've got an error here, so let me pause. Sorry, I gave the wrong information here. This is supposed to be move. So please change that. Move contact solid. Okay, so if you please change that, and then we'll get it to, and then now we'll try it. Okay, I don't know if you saw it quick enough. I'll run it again just so you can see. But keep an eye on her and watch her hit the platform. She won't float like she did before. She goes straight there. Okay. All right, so next thing we want to do is we're going to get her to move left and right. Now I'm going to go to the room. All right, so again, for the next part here, I'm gonna make her start moving left and right, but I want to add something to the room first before I do that. So I'm gonna click this little button. Again, if you ever don't see this stuff on the side here, it's probably hidden in this little double arrow button right there. Just click that and this pops open. So I'm going to open up the room here, and I'm going to add some more blocks and a couple of platforms here so that I can demonstrate this next part here. So I'm going to put a little block right there, and then I'm going to put a block right there. Right there. Okay, just so you can see this next part here. So I'm going to go, alright, so I'm going to go back to my jumper. Let me zoom out here a little bit. Let me open these guys up a little bit so I've got more room to play. Alright, so next we're going to do is we are going to now get her to move to the left and to the right. So the event we're going to use is we're going to use key down. That way this will happen. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Okay, come on, zoom in. There we go. Let me narrow this out a little bit. I'm trying to maybe squeeze this in a little bit. So the event we're going to do is key down left. Okay. And what we're going to do is we are going to get it to so that she will stop if she hits anything to the side of her. So just like we checked to see if there was not a block below her right here, when she was falling, we're going to now check to see if there's nothing to the left of her when she is falling. So we will do that here in a second. So go back to key down left, and we're going to do that same function here. We're going to check right here for collisions, if any object at, and again we're going to say if there is not any object, this time we're going to check to her left, and we're going to put a what we're going to put here is negative SPD. And the reason we're putting negative SPD is because this, remember in the create event here, that's what we set, this is what's going to control her speed. So what we're doing here is we're going to check the distance she would travel in a step. So I'm going negative speed. And the reason I'm using negative is because when you go to the left, the numbers get smaller. And so I want to check directly to the left, and I'm going to leave Y at 0 because I don't care if the block is above me or below me. I just care if it's to the left of me. So I got to put a negative speed there. And to kind of demonstrate why I'm using a negative number, let me go back to this. I'm going to I'll turn on the grid here, and you'll see as I'm moving, when I go to the left, I'm hitting to the left direction. But let me turn on the coordinate markers here. You'll see again as I move to the left. See, right now I'm at 444. My X value is 444 right here. Okay, that's 444 pixels from the left side of the screen. That's what that number means. If I want to go to the left, my number gets smaller. I have to subtract from my X value to make that go that direction. Okay, so that's why we're using a negative number. The numbers get smaller as we go that direction. So same thing here. I'm going to that's why it's a negative value there. All right, now when she turns to the left, when we want her to go to the left, we want her to get the left sprite. So we're going to change her sprite, which is on the instances section, the Pac-Man looking guy, and you're going to drag it to the side here. Make sure you drag it to the side, and we're going to select the left sprite, and we want to we don't want her to go to, if we leave it at frame 0 here, she will go to frame 0, which is this one here, every step, which will make it look like her legs are staying together and she's just sliding with her feet together across the floor. That's not what we want. We want it so that she walks, and we want her to be able to advance to the next sub-image. So that's what we're going to allow that to do it, we're going to click relative here. And what relative does, instead of setting the value to 0, it's going to add 0 to whatever the current value is. So if he is on, if she is on subimage 0, and again the reason the number is 0 is I know I've explained this a couple times, but computer programmers like to count things starting with 0. So this is frame 0, this is frame 1, frame 2, and frame 3. So we want it so that if she is on frame 2, we add 0 to frame 2, and that so she stays on 0. So that's why we're doing that. Okay, so now she's turning left, and we're not adding anything to her frame rate, but now we want to get her to start animating. So the way we do that, again, we use the set animation speed action, which is right here, the set animation speed. It might be in a slightly different, depending on how many columns you got here, you can end up with this a slightly different layout here. So here's my set animation speed. Again, it's the guy chasing the triangles. Drag that down, and I'm going to set it, remember in our create event right here, this is how fast we want her to animate. So I'm setting it to 0.5 here. That way I can change it in one place if I need to later on. So I go back to the key down left, and I'm set my speed to ANISPD. And again, you've got to make sure you don't have to use this word ANISPEED, but you have to spell it exactly as you did right here. The spelling on this and this have to be identical, as well as on here with the speed. With this SPD, you don't have to use SPD, but if you do, you got to make sure you spell it exactly the same right here, same here that you did on the create event. Otherwise, you will get an error. All right, so key down left. So we're gonna get it to move to the left, and we will test this right now. I'm gonna play the game, and you see, okay, she moves to the left. Oh, she's not moving to the left. The reason is we did not tell her to. So let's fix that. So we got her to move. We got her to turn so that she's got the right sprite, and we got her little feet moving. But now we got to actually get her moving, and we're going to do it in a slightly different way than what we've done in other games here. Instead of actually having her move, we're basically going to cause her to teleport in the left direction. And remember here we checked the value of SPD, which is 4 in this case, to the left. And that's where we want to move. So we're going to use this in the movement section here. You're going to use this action, jump to point. Drag that below this. And the trick is on this is wherever you are checking, negative speed, 0, and both relative, that's where you want to go. Negative SPD and 0, and these are relative here, so you make them relative here. Okay. Okay, so now as we test the game, you will see that she will move to the left fine as long as there's nothing beside her. Okay. Now as you notice well, you may not notice, but the right does not work. So if she jumps off here, you see she falls, and then when she gets close to here, you'll see that let me turn my coordinate thing on. You'll see right now she is at 204, 242. So as she moves to the left, you see the X value gets smaller. The X value right there gets smaller. It's 192 now. Move to the left. Now 188. You see, and then she gets to a point where she is within 4 pixels of that square, and she will stop. This means that if she moved 4 pixels over, she would be touching that square, that block. So that's why it is not letting her move, and that number is less than her current value. So that's why, again, why we checked the negative SPD. Again, SPD equals 4 when she moves left, or when she moves right. So now I'm just going to simply duplicate this. I'm going to simply duplicate this to make for her to do her right walking. So let's right click on the key down here and go duplicate event for key down right. And then I have to go in and change this some of this stuff in here. So now instead of changing the small, seeing if it's to the left, we want to check if it's to the right. And because the numbers get larger as you go to the right, as the X value gets larger as you go to the right, we're just going to simply take off this minus sign. So now it's going to check 4 pixels to the right. Okay, and if there is nothing 4 pixels to her right, then we will get her to use her right sprite this time. Again, frame 0, so it doesn't advance. Anti-speed stays the same, and then this one is going to change also. The key is on this, whatever you put here, wherever you check, is wherever you want to go. Or I guess more correctly would be wherever you want to go is where you want to check. Okay, so let's run this, make sure she works okay in both directions. Yep, left, right, she's doing fine. We didn't check, I guess we could do it here. Oh, she doesn't jump any. She doesn't jump yet. Okay, so, okay. Oh, she doesn't jump, so that didn't work. Let's run that again, and I will demonstrate, see how she will not move to the right if there's a block there. Okay, so I'm going to go this way, and you'll notice that if I walk to the right, bam, she stops there and just drops down. Okay, okay. All right, all right. So now, one of the problem you see is that when she stops moving, her legs are still going. So we've got to simply just fix that, and basically what we do is when the key goes up, then that's when she stops moving. So I'm going to go key up left. And again, it's a new event here. So add event, key up. Again, this occurs when you let go of a particular key. And left, we're going to do simply two things. We're going to set her sprite, and we're going to set her animation speed to 0. So right here, again, this is up here and recently used because I used it recently. Shocker. Okay, so we're going to set her sprite. Since we're lifting the left key, when we lift at the left key, we want her to keep using the left sprite, and we want to go to frame 0. And again, that's because when most people stop walking, their legs are together, not apart. So when we look at the sprite for her going left, you'll see on sprite 0 and sprite 2, her legs are together. So we want either one of those will work. Okay. So that's why we set it to 0. And we do not check relative. We want it to go to 0. Okay. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set animation speed. Let me back this out here. Go here, set animation speed, and we just want her to stop. We don't need to use variable. We just want it to stop. So she'll stop cycling through her images here. And just like we did with the left and right key downs, we're going to do the same with key up. We're just going to duplicate this event, key up right, and we will just simply change what we need to. This set sprite here will go from being the left sprite to the right sprite, but animation speed still gets set to 0. So if we test the game, you see she moves, and then when we let go of the key, she stops moving, or her legs stop moving. Okay, so next we're going to get her to jump, and that is pretty simple. We're going to use the space key event to do that. So we can, all we simply do is we're going to basically push her up into the air. And the way we do that, again, we're going to go add event, and we want it to be a key pressed. So it happens just one time when we press the key. Key pressed, space. We're going to use the space bar to jump. And again, all we're going to do is just give her some vertical speed to go up. So again, we go to find the speed action. We drag that into position here. And then what we're going to do is we want to change her vertical speed. That way if she's moving to the left or the right, she can still jump up. If we just change this, if we set a direction straight up, then every time she jumps, she'll just go straight vertical instead of up. This way, using this, she will, if she's got some horizontal speed going side to side, she will keep that and then just add some vertical speed to her. Now, this may be a little bit confusing because we want her to go up, but remember in GameMaker, the value, if you go up, when you go up, you see her, this is the other character. Look at the number there, it's a 306. If I jump, you see the number gets smaller. Same thing with speed. We want her speed we want her to go up the screen, which basically is making her number smaller. So we want to go basically backward speed. It's a little bit confusing, but so we're going to put -5. So this is going to give her a speed, a push up with a speed of -5. Okay. Now, if we play the game right now, you're going to see we do have an issue that we have to deal with. So if she's walking fine. If I hit the space bar, she's fine. I'm going to drop down here a little bit lower so you can see this a little bit better. So she's here fine. I hit the space, she jumps. But look what happens if I jump while she's in the air. I can just keep making her jump and jump and jump, which is not what real people do. So we have to now clarify this. We say we can only jump if there is something below you, if there's something solid below you. So we've used something very similar to this right here. This if any object at, and I'm going to put that above this, and then we've got to drag this to the side. What this means when you put it to the side again is if this is true, it'll do this. If it's not true, it skips this. It doesn't do anything. So just like you in real life, you cannot jump unless there's something solid or something directly below you that you can jump off of, that you can push off of. So again, we're checking our from us where we are, so we're going to click relative here. We don't care about side to side. You don't need something to the side of you to jump. You need something below you. So our x value, which is our horizontal value, does not. We don't check. So we're going to make that 0. The y value, though, just like we wanted to check for gravity, that you have to have something. If there's nothing 1 pixel below you, if you moved 1 pixel, would you hit anything? This is basically the same thing. So we're going. We're checking below us. So again, remember in GameMaker, the numbers get larger as you go down. So this has got to be a positive number, and we're checking directly just 1 pixel below us, or below her. So there you go. So that simple thing there now when you play. When she hits spacebar, see now I'm tapping the spacebar. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm tapping it violently, and she's only jumping when she hits the ground. Okay? So that's good. That's what we want. So now she can jump off platforms. And it's not perfect because you can see she can change directions while she's in midair, but there's a lot of video games that are that way, so we can if you can leave it that way. That's fine. All right. Okay, so now we're going to get her to be able to climb ladders. So get that started here, what we're going to do is we're going to open up the room again, and you're going to put some ladders in here. Now remember, these ladders are two grid spaces tall, at least the ones we've got. So I'm going to, when I click on here, when I hold Alt and click there, see it takes up 2 grid spaces. So you got to watch how you play these so that they go so you don't overlap them too much. So I'm going to make a couple of ladders here so she can get back up. Again, if you hold the Alt key, you can draw like this. Oops. If you make a mistake, you just hold the Shift key and draw over the ones you want to get rid of and just hit delete. You hold again, to erase things, you hold down the Shift key and you just highlight the ones you want to get rid of like that, and then you just hit the delete key. And again, the delete key is not the same as the backspace key. But in that part of the program, the backspace key will work as well, apparently. So they must be kind of gearing this more towards Apple users, because that normally doesn't work. But in most programs, backspace is treated differently than delete button. All right. The other thing you want to make sure of is if you can't seem to select something, make sure you're on the instances layer here, or if you've made another layer or something for the instance layer that you can do that, or that it is done there, so that you're on the correct layer. If I click off of that layer, see, notice now I can't click anything. But if I go back to the instances layer, which is where all this stuff is located, see, now I can select things. So again, if you have trouble, so put a few ladders into the room. I need to put a couple more here to demonstrate some issues that we're going to have. Let's put one right here. Okay, let's go a little bit taller. All right, so now if I play the game, you'll see we have an issue. One issue is that she cannot walk through the ladder. So if I go over here, you'll see she stops at the ladder because we told the computer, we told the program that if we check to see if there is nothing next to her, like If she's going to the right. If there's nothing to the right of her, then go ahead and move to the right. Well, now there is something to the right of her. There's the ladder. Okay, so we now have to tell it, well, if the ladder's there, go ahead and move. That's basically what we're telling it. And the way we do that is we go back to our object. Let me give myself some more room here again. And we go to that object, and then we say when we go to the left, this is where we want to check it. This time we are going to check again, and we're going to do a little bit of redundant coding here, but it's kind of unavoidable in drag and drop. If we were doing this in actual GML coding, we could do this, but this takes a little bit of work. So what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if there is a particular object, and that is this one. If object at, you click that, drag it right below this if any object action. Grab that and you see it drops it way down here. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to tell it, okay, if right here you're going to select the ladder. Okay, if the ladder is in the same position, negative speed 0, negative speed, and then 0, and then both of these relative. And again, not is not checked in this case because we want to see if the ladder is there, we want to move. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to simply copy these three. So I'm going to go click on one, hold the shift key down or the control key, either one works. Get them all held down and get all of them selected here. Control C to copy. Click down here and go Control V to paste, and then you will have to manually move them all to the side of this. Okay, and we don't have to do anything to this. So now we read this as such: if there is any object at this position, negative SPD, which is -4, so 4 pixels to our left, if there's not anything there, then go ahead and move. Set your sprite, set your animation speed, and then go ahead and go to that position. Okay, but so if the block is there, this does not run because this is true. This is false. There is a block there. So if there is a block, then this is not true. This stuff doesn't run. So that's why also if there's a ladder there, if there is a ladder 4 pixels to the left, that means this is not true because there's not a ladder, basically, which it ain't proper English, but that's the way coding goes. So if there is not a ladder there, then it will go there. If there's not a block there, it will do this. But if there's either one of those objects, this will not run and she will not move. So then we bypass that and say, okay, well, if there is a ladder, then go ahead and move. Okay? So that's basically what we're telling it. So now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna simply click on this one right here. I don't have to copy the whole thing. I'm just going to click on this and go Control C to copy. Go to the key down right and go down here and go Control V to paste. And you'll see now it's laid it out exactly the same way. See, I don't have to go drag it like that. It already positions itself. Now the only thing I need to do now is just change it. So these SPD and 0 should be the same here. It should be here, 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 SPD again, 0. And again, the other change I need to make is this should be now right, since I'm in the right, key down right. And set this to a positive value. So again, just to reiterate, wherever you want to go, which is right here, SPD and 0, that's where you want to check. Same here. I want to go to SPD, which is basically 4 to the right, 0 up or down, and then I want to check there. Okay, so now with both those in here, you can see she can now go through the ladder. She can't climb the ladder yet, but she can walk through it. See, she won't fall while she's on the ladder. And if we get a neat effect here, see if you notice she doesn't fall faster when she's on the ladder. And then she'll jump up and just go down like that. And this is all because we didn't tell, when she's on the ladder, gravity is not pushing on her. But if she's already got some, speed on her, or if she's got some speed on her, she won't stop because we didn't tell her to. Okay. So now we are going to now get her to be able to climb up and down the ladder. Alright, so one of the first things we need to do to make that happen is we got to get her to stop moving if she is on the ladder or touches the ladder. So if she lands on the ladder, we don't want her to keep falling. We just want her to stop moving. Now we could do an add event and then collision with the ladder like that. But I'm going to show you a different way to do a collision event, or you can replace one of these add events here with a different kind of setup here. What we're going to do is in the step event, below all of this, we are going to now check if she's on the ladder. And if she is, we will stop her from falling further. Okay. So again, just like we did before, we're going to go and check to see if she is touching anything. So I'm using this one again. Again, it's in the collision section. And we're going to check if she is in the ladder, or if she is touching the ladder here. Now let me kind of widen this out a little bit so we can see a little bit better here. And if you notice how this is laid out, you'll see you've got if any object, then this stuff happens if that's true. This stuff will happen if it's not true. And then you'll see this path, it just keeps going down here. So after it runs all that code, now it comes back down to here, and we're going to check to see if the ladder is at our current position, which would mean we're touching it. If at our current position we are touching the ladder, and again our current position would be 0, 0 relative in both of these. So if I'm touching the ladder, then I want to turn gravity off, again, which is under movement, if I can find it here. Yep, there's movement. We want to turn gravity off. So I just grab that one, set gravity, and we want to set it to 0. So she'll stop getting pushed down. And then we're going to set her vertical speed to 0, just like what she does when she hits a platform. So we go to the movement section again, set speed, drag that down. Let me roll this up a little bit. And again, we just worried about her horizontal speed, or her vertical speed, I'm sorry, her up and down speed. And we set it to 0. So now you'll see if she jumps on a ladder, she will stop. And that's the code that caused it. So she still can't climb down a ladder or up and down a ladder, but we'll get her to do that. So you'll see if she goes over here and then jumps on a ladder, see, she just stops when she hits it. And now we're going to get her to go up and down. Okay. Okay. The way we do that is, first of all, in order to be able to climb a ladder, you have to be touching the ladder. So so what's going to happen basically is if you are pressing the up key, and the up key is going to be held down, it's going to check, well, am I touching the ladder? And the other thing it has to check is make sure there's nothing above your head, because if there's something above your head, then you can't jump. Okay, so and then if those two things are true, then we can go ahead and move up and change our sprites and all of that. So I'm going to show you that's how to do that. So we're going to go add event, key down, up. Okay, and we're going to check, again, we're going to check for two things to be true. And to do that, we just lay them in kind of cascading order here. So I'm going to go back down here, find my if object at. So if object, we're going to check to see if the ladder is at our position, which is 0, 0 relative. Okay. Then we are going to now check. Again, I'm going to put it over here. Again, not directly below it, but to the side. Now we're going to check to see if the block, if there's a block above our heads. So again, we're checking from where we are, so we've got to click relative. And we don't care side to side, so this one stays 0. And we want to check above our heads. So again, in the Y direction, above you is a negative value, so we're going to go negative SPD, because remember this is the value that we were moving, that we want to move is SPD. In this game, again, its value equals 4. And we want to see if there's not a block there, so we got to check block. So now it becomes, if you are touching the ladder and there is not a block 4 pixels above your head, then you want to move to that position. So I'm going to click jump to point, and we're going to put it to the side here. Let me move this over just a tad so we can see here. So, and then wherever we're checking is where we want to go. So I'm going to go 0, negative SPD, and click relative on these two, just like this. Now again, more correctly would be wherever you want to go is where you've got to check. So then after that, we want to do a couple other things just like we did in the other directions. We want to set our sprite. And again, you notice I'm doing this in a different order for this direction. The order doesn't matter in some cases, so this is one of those cases. So we want to jump up, or we want to go to the up direction. And again, we want our frames, we want to add 0 to whatever our current frame is. Again, if we don't click relative here, it's going to send our sub image to 0. So she will always end up being on the first sub image when she's climbing up. And again, it looks like it'll look like she's sliding up the ladder. So we want to click relative here, and then we also want to set her animation speed, which again is right here. Set animation speed, and we want that to be the value, our preset value, Annie speed. And you can see the value of using these variables here, because otherwise if we wanted to change this at some point, we'd have to go to like 8 different places to change this value to make it work right. The way by using a variable that we create, we only have to change it in one spot, and that will save you a lot of time in the long run. Okay, so now she should be able to climb up. She should be able to climb up the ladder. So if she is touching the ladder and there is not a block 4 pixels above her, then she can move to that position and set her sprite to up, and her animation speed will go. So let's test it, make sure she can climb the ladder. Alright, so we go over, we'll find the ladder here. She'll land on the ladder. See, she can't go down, but if I go to the side of the ladder and go to it, she can go up. See? Now, again, when she's going up, you see she's still wiggling in there. So we're gonna get it so that when you let go of the up key, she will stop going. But we'll do that after we get the right side, the down button set. So our down function is going to be almost exactly the same. This time we're going to check the ladder. We're going to see if she's touching the ladder. If so, then we're going to see if there's a block below her this time. And then if there's not a block below her, then we will jump to that point, set her sprite, and do the animation speed. So it's almost exactly the same coding here. So I'm going to, again, just like we did before, I'm going to right click on key down up and duplicate the event for key down down. Okay. So now we got to go through and check all this and make sure everything's going to be okay here. So again, we want to check to see if we're touching the ladder. Okay, at our position, whatever position we are, this is true. Then we want to check to see if the block is below us, or if it's not below us particularly. So again, in the Y value, the numbers get larger as you go down, so this has got to be a positive number. And again, whatever this is, this must be also. And here comes a trick question. Now, some of you may think, okay, well, she's going down, we need to set this to down. Well, if you do that, which I will for a second here, and test it, you will see it looks odd. So she hits the ladder here, and when she goes down, look, she's facing you. Well, I guess if she's on the other side of the ladder, that'll be okay, but So when person goes down the ladder, they are not typically they don't typically turn around. They back down the ladder. Okay. So we go here and we leave this, instead of changing this to down, we leave this to up. Now, one other problem I see here that I just noticed is that she is behind the ladder. Okay. We go here, she's behind the ladder. It's kind of hard to tell here, but you can see the rungs of the ladder in front of her. Now we can fix that real quick by just changing the depth of the, either change the depth of the ladder or change the depth of the girl. So I'm gonna change the depth of the ladder. So I'm going to close this, and the way you can change the depth of something is by just simply on the object itself. They will on older versions there used to be a little section here that you would click on the depth, but what we're going to do here, we have to do a creative in here, and we can manually set it. And the way you do that is on the instances section right here. There is this button here called Set Instance Variable, and this allows you, this one here allows you to change a bunch of different things. And what we want to do is change depth. And what depth is basically kind of like layers. The larger the number, the farther it is away. The farther the item is away from you in terms of visual. It's below everything else. The default value is 0. Everything is normally drawn on 0, and you control layers. You can control layers in the room a different way, but this is just one item, and I don't want to create a whole new layer for it. So I can just set this depth. I can set this depth to simply 1. 1 is greater than 0, so it'll be behind everything else. And so I go ahead and play now, and we look and see that she is now in front of the ladder. And it's kind of hard to tell, but you can see it. Okay, now we got one little last problem. Her legs are still moving when she goes up and down the ladder. So we can simply... Alright, so we can... now we're going to do that. We're going to get her to stop moving up and down, or stop her legs from moving around. So we are on, we got to go back to the jumper object, and we're going to look. We remember we had the same problem with left and right. So, and the way we solved that was with the key up event for left and right. So if I look at that and I see, I'm going to look and see, will this help me what I want? Set sprite. Yeah, I set sprite, and I set the animation speed to 0. So this will work for up and down. So I'm going to right click on key up left, and I'm going to go duplicate event for key up, and all I'm going to do is change this sprite jumper left to sprite jumper up. Okay, and then for the down is going to be exactly the same. I'm not going to have to change anything at all. So I'm going to right click again on key up this time, duplicate, key up, down this time, and then again I want it to be the up sprite when it goes. So now when I play the game, so now when she goes to the ladder, she climbs up and down, and then see, she stops. Okay. Now, one little thing that kind of bugs me in this game is that, look, I can be way out here on this ladder and climb. That's a pretty strong girl there who can climb on the outside of a ladder like this. So the way you can solve that is you can kind of trick the computer into forcing her to be in the middle of the ladder. There's coding you can do to lock her onto the middle of the ladder, but we're not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to show you kind of a quicker, easier way to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the sprite of that ladder. Okay, and I'm going to go over here to where collision mask is, And I'm going to show you when that's selected. See this rectangle right here? This is what the computer sees. So if she's touching any part of this, she is in contact with the ladder and can climb up it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the computer think it is skinnier than it is. So I'm going to go on over here to mode. I'm going to change this from automatic to manual, and you'll see I get these little boxes here that will show up here. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Yeah, you see these little boxes right here. I can just drag this box and get it to be about a pixel wide right in the middle of that ladder. Something like that. Now I need to go over this way a little bit. Try and get it right center in there. And again, you can use these blocks kind of as a guide. Let's see, one, two, three, about 4 blocks. 1, 2, 3.5 blocks. So I could probably go over one pixel this way. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, about and a half. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I guess I didn't go far enough here. Okay, maybe that's as centered as I can get it here. Okay, that's about as centered as I can get it. Now you see this single line is now what the computer sees as the ladder. Okay, so let me maximize this. So you can what that now allows you to do is when you play the game, she will not be able to climb the ladder until she touches this single line right here. So now if we play the game, you'll see that it plays a little bit different. She can fall off the ladder when she's halfway off it now. So there we go. There's our ladder. Come down. You see if I go off just even a little bit to the side, I can't see if I'm on the side here. I can't climb up until I'm right in touch in the middle. She can still go off the side a little bit, but again, we can work on different issues to make you can even make her skinnier if you want, but that's a little more work. A little more work than I'm prepared to do right now. Okay, all right, so that is the tutorial. Again, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask in class, and we'll see you on the next tutorial.